The pregnancy test slipped from Phoenix's trembling fingers, clattering against the bathroom tile with a sound that seemed impossibly loud in the suffocating silence. Two pink lines. Twins, according to the second test she'd taken, the one specifically designed for werewolves that could detect multiple heartbeats even this early. She pressed a hand to her still, flat stomach, her wolf stirring with a protective fierceness that took her breath away. After 3 years of trying, of monthly disappointments that had carved deeper wounds into her relationship with Marcus, she was finally pregnant. With twins. Joy flooded through her, pure and golden and overwhelming. Marcus would be thrilled. He'd been so frustrated lately, so distant, but this would fix everything. This would prove she wasn't the weak mate everyone whispered about behind their hands. She could give him heirs, strong heirs. Phoenix cleaned up the bathroom with shaking hands, tucked the tests into her pocket, and practically ran through the pack house. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, painting everything in warm amber light. She could hear voices from the main hall, the usual gathering before the evening meal. Perfect. She could tell Marcus privately first, see his face light up, feel his arms around her. But when she rounded the corner to the hall, she froze. Marcus stood on the raised platform where the alpha addressed the pack, his hand wrapped around someone else's waist. Serena, the beta's daughter, all curves and confidence and gleaming dark hair. She was laughing at something Marcus had said, her head tilted back, his thumb stroking her hip in a gesture Phoenix knew intimately. "As your alpha," Marcus's voice rang out across the suddenly silent hall, "I have an announcement." Phoenix's feet wouldn't move, couldn't move. She stood in the doorway like a deer scenting a wolf, every instinct screaming danger. "The moon goddess has shown me the truth I've been too loyal to acknowledge." Marcus's eyes found Phoenix across the room, and there was nothing in them. No warmth, no recognition, no love. Nothing. Phoenix of the Shadow Moon Pack. I, Marcus Blackwood, reject you as my mate. The words hit like physical blows. Phoenix staggered, her hand flying to her chest where the mate bond lived, that golden thread that had tied her to Marcus for 3 years. She felt it fray, felt it begin to tear. "No," she whispered, but the sound was lost in the collective gasp of the pack. "You're too weak to carry an alpha's heirs," Marcus continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, ensuring everyone heard her humiliation. "Your wolf is barely present. Your bloodline is common. I was young when I claimed you, blinded by a false bond. Serena is the mate I should have chosen. She's strong, fertile, worthy of being the Shadow Moon Luna." Serena pressed against Marcus's side, her smile sharp and satisfied. "I accept you as my mate, Alpha," she purred loud enough for everyone to hear. Phoenix felt the bond snap completely, a rubber band pulled too tight. The pain dropped her to her knees. She heard herself cry out, a broken animal sound that echoed off the walls. Around her, pack members she'd known for years, people she'd considered friends, looked away. Some whispered. No one moved to help her. Through the haze of agony, Phoenix felt her hand drift to her stomach. The twins. Their heartbeats fluttered against her awareness, so new, so fragile. Marcus didn't know. He'd rejected her believing her barren, and she would never, ever give him the satisfaction of knowing otherwise. "Leave this territory by nightfall," Marcus said, already turning away from her, his attention on Serena. "You're no longer Shadow Moon Pack." Phoenix hauled herself to her feet, dignity in tatters, pride shredded, but protective fury blazing in her chest. She met Marcus's gaze one last time. "You'll regret this." He laughed. Actually laughed. "I regret wasting 3 years. Now get out." She ran. Phoenix grabbed nothing from the room that had been theirs, wanted nothing that carried his scent. She had the clothes on her back, $30 in her pocket, and the pregnancy tests that felt like they were burning against her hip. She ran through the pack house, Out into the forest, her wolf surging forward to lend her speed even though she couldn't fully shift, had never been able to complete a full transformation. Weak, Marcus had called her. Barely present. Her wolf snarled in her mind, more active than she'd ever been, flooding Phoenix with desperate strength. They ran for hours as the sun sank lower, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. Phoenix didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get away, had to reach neutral territory where Packlaw couldn't touch her. Her legs finally gave out at the border. She knew it by the change in the trees, the way the scent markers shifted from shadow moon to nothing, neutral ground. She collapsed against an ancient oak, her body shaking with exhaustion and shock, and the lingering agony of a shattered mate bond. The twins. She had to protect the twins. Phoenix curled on her side in the fallen leaves, one hand pressed protectively over her stomach, the other clutched against her chest, where her heart felt like it was still breaking. Darkness crept in at the edges of her vision. She fought it, but her body had nothing left to give. Well, well, a voice like ancient honey drifted through the twilight. What do we have here? Phoenix forced her eyes open. An old woman stood over her, impossibly wrinkled, her eyes reflecting the last rays of sunlight like molten gold. She wore simple clothes, but power radiated from her in waves that made Phoenix's wolf whimper and press close. Please, Phoenix whispered, I just need to rest. I'll move on in the morning. The elder knelt beside her with a grace that belied her apparent age, pressing one gnarled hand to Phoenix's stomach. Her eyes widened, then crinkled with a smile. Oh, child, the children you carry bear the mark of two fathers, one of blood, one of destiny. What? Phoenix tried to sit up, but the woman's hand on her shoulder kept her down. The true Alpha King will claim what is his. The elder's voice took on a strange resonance, as if multiple voices spoke through her at once. Your suffering ends at dawn. Sleep now, little Phoenix. Your rising comes soon. I don't understand. But the darkness was already pulling her under, and the last thing Phoenix saw was the old woman's eyes glowing like twin moons. Silk sheets. That was Phoenix's first conscious thought. She was lying in silk sheets, the kind that probably cost more than everything she'd ever owned combined. The scent that surrounded her was cedar and mountain air, and something wild and powerful that made her wolf roll over and purr in contentment. Her eyes snapped open. The room was enormous, all dark wood and stone, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over a landscape too vast and beautiful to be real. Mountains in the distance, forests of deep green, and directly below, a compound of buildings that could only be described as a palace. The royal palace. Phoenix sat up too quickly, and her stomach rolled in protest. She was wearing different clothes, soft leggings, and an oversized shirt that carried that same cedar scent. Someone had undressed her, bathed her, she realized, catching the scent of lavender soap on her skin. You're awake. The voice came from the doorway, deep and rich and threaded with authority that made every wolf instinct in her body snap to attention. Good. The physician was concerned about how long you slept. Phoenix turned, and the world stopped. He was beautiful in the way ancient gods were beautiful. Too perfect to be safe, too powerful to approach without caution. Tall, broad-shouldered, with black hair that fell just past his collar and eyes like liquid silver. He moved into the room with lethal grace, and Phoenix's wolf slammed against her consciousness with desperate want. Mate, her wolf howled. Mate, mate, mate. No, impossible. She'd just lost her mate. The bond didn't work that way. You got one, and if you were lucky, it was good, and if you weren't, I can see you feel it too, the man said, stopping at the foot of the bed. Those silver eyes tracked over her face, down to where her hand had instinctively moved to protect her stomach. The bond. It's unexpected. Who are you? Phoenix demanded, though she already knew. Every wolf in every territory knew his face. Nico Silvercrest, Alpha King, ruler of all packs, the most powerful werewolf alive. You know who I am. He moved closer, and Phoenix forced herself not to retreat, not to show weakness, even though her heart hammered against her ribs. The question is, do you know who you are, Phoenix? Her name in his mouth sent shivers down her spine. How do you— An elder brought you to my gates 3 days ago. You were half dead from exhaustion and mate bond rejection. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. She said you carried something precious, something that belonged to me. 3 days. Phoenix's hand pressed harder against her stomach. The twins. The twins, Nikos agreed, that according to every test my physician has run, carry my bloodline signature. That's impossible. Phoenix shook her head, desperate to understand. I've never met you. I was mated to Marcus for 3 years. These babies are— Yours, Nikos interrupted, and mine, through an ancient magic that even I don't fully understand yet. He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that his scent wrapped around her, close enough that she could feel heat radiating from his body. But Lycan law is clear. Those children carry my essence. That makes them my heirs. And you. His hand came up, fingers ghosting along her jaw without quite touching, are my responsibility now. Phoenix should pull away, should argue, fight, demand answers that made sense. Instead, she found herself leaning into his almost touch, her body drawn to his like a compass to north. I don't understand any of this, she whispered. I know. His thumb brushed across her lower lip, and Phoenix's breath caught. You've been through trauma. You're pregnant, alone, cast out by a fool who didn't deserve you. The gentleness in his voice at odds with the fury in his eyes. I'm offering you sanctuary, Phoenix. Protection. A place for you and your children. Why? She forced herself to meet his gaze. Why would the Alpha King care about one rejected she-wolf? Nikos smiled, slow and devastating. Because the moment I saw you, I felt the mate bond snap into place. Because those babies you carry are somehow mine in ways I'm still working to understand. Because ancient magic is at work here, and I didn't become Alpha King by ignoring destiny when it collapses on my doorstep. He stood, putting distance between them that Phoenix immediately mourned. You're in the royal palace, in my private wing. These rooms connect to mine. You'll stay here where I can ensure you're safe and cared for. My physician will monitor your pregnancy. You'll eat properly, rest, regain your strength. And if I refuse? Phoenix challenged, even though she had nowhere else to go. Nikos looked back at her, those silver eyes seeing too much. You won't. Because you're not a fool. And you know those babies need protection. Because you feel this bond between us as strongly as I do, even if it terrifies you. He moved to the door, then paused. And because I think part of you is done running. He was right, and Phoenix hated how easily he read her. I don't trust alphas. Smart. Nikos' smile held approval. Trust is earned. I intend to earn yours, Phoenix, starting now. He nodded toward a tray on the table she hadn't noticed. Food. Eat. Then rest more. We'll talk this evening. And if I want to leave, then you leave. His voice was matter-of-fact. I'm not your former mate. I don't keep people prisoner. But you won't leave, because you're smart enough to know this is the safest place in all the territories for a pregnant she-wolf carrying twins of prophecy. He left before Phoenix could respond, the door clicking shut behind him. She sat in the enormous bed, in silk sheets that cost more than her life, in the Alpha King's private wing, and pressed both hands to her stomach where two impossible babies grew. The mate bond she shouldn't have hummed in her chest, gold and warm and terrifying. The food smelled amazing, Real food, expensive food, prepared by someone who knew what pregnant wolves needed. Her stomach growled despite everything, and Phoenix found herself reaching for the tray. Just for now, she told herself. Just until she figured out what was happening. Just until she was strong enough to face the world again. But as she ate, as the twins fluttered in awareness against her palm, as the mate bond pulsed steady and sure in her chest, Phoenix suspected her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. The mysterious elder's words echoed in her mind. The true Alpha King will claim what is his. Outside the windows, the royal palace sprawled in all its magnificent danger, and somewhere in its depths, Nico's Silvercrest was probably already planning exactly how to keep her. Phoenix should be terrified. Instead, for the first time since Marcus's rejection, she felt something almost like hope. Phoenix woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the unfamiliar sensation of being well rested. She stretched carefully, one hand moving automatically to her stomach. The twins responded with gentle flutters that made her smile despite everything. A week had passed since she'd woken in the Alpha King's palace. 7 days of eating rich food that her body desperately needed. Of medical examinations with a physician who treated her like she mattered. Of watching Nikos from the corner of her eye while he pretended not to watch her back. The mate bond hummed between them constantly now, a golden thread she couldn't ignore even when she tried. The connecting door between their chambers clicked open. Phoenix sat up, pulling the silk sheets higher, even though she was fully dressed in the soft nightgown someone had left for her. "Good morning." Nikos entered with a breakfast tray, looking unfairly attractive in simple black pants and a white shirt that did nothing to hide the powerful body beneath. "The kitchen prepared your favorites." Phoenix eyed the perfectly poached eggs, the fresh fruit, the herbal tea she'd mentioned liking once in passing 3 days ago. "You don't have to bring me breakfast personally. You're the Alpha King, which means I do exactly as I please." He set the tray on the table near the windows. "Eat with me." It wasn't quite a command, but Phoenix felt the pull of his authority nonetheless. She rose, acutely aware of how intimate this was. Breakfast in her bedroom, both of them in sleeping clothes, the morning light making his silver eyes gleam. She settled into the chair he pulled out for her and tried not to notice how his fingers brushed her shoulder. "There's a formal dinner tonight," Nikos said, taking the seat across from her. "Visiting alphas from the Eastern Territories. I'd like you to attend." Phoenix froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. "As what? Your charity case? As someone under my personal protection?" His gaze held hers. "The werewolf world is talking, Phoenix. They know you're here. Some are calling you my mistress, others my prisoner. I want to make your status clear." "And what is my status?" She set down her fork, appetite suddenly gone. "Because I don't understand any of this. The mate bond, the twins somehow being yours, ancient magic, none of it makes sense." Nikos leaned back, studying her with an intensity that made her skin heat. "What do you feel when you look at me?" The question was unfair. Phoenix felt everything. Attraction so strong it terrified her, safety she didn't trust, the pull of a bond that shouldn't exist. "That's not an answer. Neither was yours." He smiled slightly. "The physician found references in the old texts. Your bloodline is rarer than anyone knew, ancient Luna blood that can amplify and channel power. When you conceived, when your body was at its most magically receptive, somehow the twins became conduits. They carry your ex-mate's physical contribution, but my power, my essence, it's unprecedented." Phoenix pressed both hands to her stomach. "So they're really yours?" "They're yours," Nikos corrected, "but yes. Mine to protect, mine to claim as heirs if you allow it." He leaned forward. "Come to dinner tonight. Let me show the other alphas that you're not some victim to be pitied. You're under the protection of the Alpha King, and anyone who questions that answers to me." The fierce protectiveness in his voice did something to Phoenix's heart. She'd been discarded, humiliated, cast out like trash. And here was the most powerful alpha in all territories offering to publicly declare her worth. "All right," she whispered. "I'll come." The formal dining hall was overwhelming. Phoenix stood at the entrance in a dress Nikos had sent to her rooms, midnight blue silk that somehow perfectly accommodated her growing belly while making her look elegant rather than ungainly. Her hand trembled slightly until Nikos appeared at her side, devastating in formal black. "Breathe," he murmured, offering his arm. "You look beautiful, and every alpha in that room knows it." The mate bond pulsed warm and reassuring. Phoenix took his arm, letting him guide her into the hall. Conversations stuttered as they entered. She felt dozens of eyes tracking them, assessing, judging, calculating. The visiting alphas were mostly male, their mates or chosen companions beside them, all dressed in finery that spoke of wealth and power. Nikos led her to the head table, settling her in the seat beside his own rather than somewhere lower down the hierarchy. The statement was deliberate and clear. Phoenix kept her spine straight, channeling every ounce of strength she possessed. "Alpha King," one of the visiting alphas said, his tone dripping false courtesy. "You didn't mention you'd taken a new companion." "Phoenix is under my personal protection," Nikos replied smoothly, his hand finding hers under the table. "I trust that won't be a problem, Alpha Dominic." "Of course not." Dominic's gaze raked over Phoenix with obvious assessment. "Though one wonders about the circumstances. Rumor says she's a rejected mate, cast out from Shadow Moon Pack for being barren." Phoenix's fingers tightened on Nikos's, but before she could respond, his power flooded the room like a tidal wave. Not threatening, but absolute. A reminder of exactly who ruled here. "Careful, Dominic." Nikos's voice was soft, deadly. "You're speaking about someone precious to me, and as you can clearly see," his free hand gestured to Phoenix's belly. "The rumors are inaccurate." Another alpha, this one female with calculating green eyes, leaned forward. "Are you claiming those children, Alpha King? Because Lycan law is quite specific about heirs." "The twins carry my bloodline signature," Nikos stated, and the collective intake of breath around the table was audible. "They will be acknowledged as heirs of the royal pack. Phoenix herself is under my protection, answerable to no one but me." Is that clear enough? The silence was absolute. Phoenix felt the weight of what he'd just declared, not just protection, but claiming her children as his own, elevating her status to something that might as well be Luna. The mate bond sang between them, and under the table, his thumb stroked reassuring circles on her palm. "That's unprecedented," the female alpha said carefully. "So is Phoenix." Nikos looked at her then, and Phoenix saw something in his silver eyes that made her breath catch. "Now, shall we eat? I believe the kitchen has prepared something exceptional." The dinner proceeded with painful formality. Phoenix navigated conversations about territory disputes and trade agreements, letting Nikos guide her when topics grew too complex. Several times she caught alphas staring at her belly with obvious speculation, calculating what it meant that the Alpha King claimed children that weren't biologically his. They didn't know about the ancient magic, she realized. They thought this was pure political maneuvering. Halfway through the meal, Phoenix excused herself to use the restroom, needing a moment away from the pressure of all those assessing gazes. A servant directed her to a private bathroom near the gardens. She splashed cool water on her face, trying to calm her racing heart. When she emerged, two female wolves were waiting in the corridor, mates of visiting alphas, their expressions hostile. "So you're the Alpha King's new pet," one said, looking Phoenix up and down dismissively. "You must be very talented on your back to make him claim another male's bastards." Phoenix's wolf surged forward, angry and protective. "Watch your tongue." "Or what?" The second female laughed. "You're nothing. A rejected mate playing dress-up in the palace. Once he's bored of you, you'll be right back where you started, worthless and alone." The words hit too close to Phoenix's deepest fears. Her hand moved protectively to her stomach, and she felt the twins flutter as if sensing her distress. Move aside. Make us, little Omega. Is there a problem here? Nikos's voice cut through the corridor like a blade. He appeared from nowhere, his power radiating outward in waves that made both females drop their gazes immediately, their wolves forcing submission. He moved to Phoenix's side, one hand settling possessively on her lower back. I believe you were returning to the dining hall. The females fled without another word. Phoenix sagged slightly, and Nikos's arm came around her waist, supporting her weight. What did they say? His voice was dangerous. Nothing I haven't heard before. Phoenix tried to pull away, but he held her gently in place. Phoenix. She looked up at him, at the fury and concern warring in his silver eyes, and something broke inside her. They said I was your pet, that you'd get bored, that I'm worthless, her voice cracked. And maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just fooling myself thinking this is real. Nikos turned her to face him fully, both hands coming up to cup her face. Listen to me. You are under my protection, not because you're weak, but because you're precious. Those children you carry are mine by magic and fate, and I will claim them and you before every alpha in every territory. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. You feel this bond between us. You know it's real. I felt a bond with Marcus too, Phoenix whispered. And look how that ended. I am not Marcus. The words were a vow, and I will spend however long it takes proving that to you. The mate bond flared between them, gold and warm and undeniable. Phoenix felt her wolf pressing forward, wanting to accept, to trust, to give in to the pull that had been building since the moment she'd opened her eyes in his palace. But fear held her back. Fear of being hurt again, of losing everything, of trusting an alpha who held all the power. Nico seemed to sense her internal struggle. He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, carefully not claiming more than she could give. Come, let's return to the dinner before the other alphas start making assumptions. He kept her close for the rest of the evening, his presence a constant shield against hostile gazes and whispered speculation. By the time the formal dinner ended, Phoenix was exhausted but steadier. She'd survived her first public appearance at Nikos's side, and the werewolf world now knew exactly where she stood. That night, lying in her enormous bed with the door to Nikos's chambers slightly ajar, Phoenix pressed her hands to her stomach and felt the twins flutter in response. The mate bond hummed in her chest, warm and persistent. Maybe, she thought as sleep pulled her under, maybe she could learn to trust this. Learn to trust him. The summons came 3 days later. Phoenix was walking through the palace gardens, enjoying the morning air and the way sunlight dappled through the ancient trees, when a guard approached with a message for Nikos. The Alpha King requests your presence in the throne room, Lady Phoenix. Immediately. The formal address and urgent tone sent anxiety spiking through her chest. Phoenix followed the guard through corridors she was still learning, her hand resting protectively on her belly. The twins had been particularly active this morning, as if sensing her unease. The throne room doors stood open. Phoenix entered to find Nikos on his throne, power radiating from him in waves she could feel from across the room. The royal guard flanked him, their expressions grim, and standing before the throne, looking simultaneously defiant and cowed, Marcus. Phoenix stopped dead, her wolf snarling in her mind. Her ex-mate turned to look at her, and something flickered across his face. Regret? Calculation? She couldn't tell and didn't care. Every protective instinct she possessed screamed at her to run, but she forced herself to move forward, to stop at Nikos's side. Phoenix, Marcus said, his voice carrying that alpha tone she'd once found comforting. I've come to correct a mistake. The only mistake was letting you anywhere near her, Nikos said coldly. You have 1 minute to state your business before my guards escort you off royal territory. Marcus's jaw tightened. She's stolen property from Shadowmoon Pack. According to Lycan law, rejected mates must return all gifts and possessions. She left with nothing, Phoenix interrupted, anger flooding through her. I took nothing that was yours. The children. Marcus's gaze dropped to her belly. You were pregnant when you left. Those are Shadow Moon heirs. The throne room went utterly silent. Phoenix felt Nikos's power surge, felt the mate bond flare hot and protective. Those children carry my bloodline, Nikos said softly, dangerously. They are heirs of the royal pack. You have no claim. That's impossible. Marcus took a step forward, and a dozen guards moved to block him. She's carrying my pups. I rejected her after she conceived. They're mine by law. They were never yours, Phoenix heard herself say, her voice stronger than she felt. You rejected me believing I was barren. You called me worthless, too weak to carry an alpha's heirs. You publicly humiliated me and cast me out. She moved closer to Nikos's throne, drawing strength from his presence. You gave up any rights you had the moment you severed our bond. Marcus's expression twisted into something ugly. You think the Alpha King actually wants you? You're a political move, Phoenix. He's using you to— Choose your next words very carefully, Nikos interrupted, rising from his throne. The power that emanated from him made the air itself feel heavy. You come into my territory, disrespect my mate, and make false claims on children who are mine. Give me one reason I shouldn't have you executed for the insult. His mate. Phoenix's heart stuttered. Nikos had never said it so directly before, never claimed her so publicly. There's more going on here than you know, Marcus said, and for the first time, something like fear crossed his face. I was paid to reject Phoenix, paid to cast her out. The words hung in the air like poison. Phoenix felt cold wash over her. What? Marcus wouldn't meet her eyes. A rival faction approached me 6 months ago. They said Phoenix's bloodline was rare, ancient Luna blood that could amplify an alpha's power. They wanted her vulnerable, wanted her isolated so they could take her. His voice dropped. They offered me territory, resources, a stronger mate. I thought they just wanted to study her blood. I didn't know. You sold your mate, Nikos said, and the fury in his voice made the windows rattle. You betrayed your bond for territory and power. I didn't know they wanted to hurt her. Marcus's composure cracked. I just thought— An explosion of sound shattered the rest of his words. The windows on the eastern side of the throne room exploded inward in a shower of glass and silver light. Phoenix screamed as Nikos moved faster than thought, his body covering hers as they hit the floor. She heard shouts, felt the twins flutter in panic, smelled blood and magic and violence. Through the shattered windows, figures in dark clothing poured into the room. Assassins. Phoenix saw silver weapons, the kind that could kill werewolves, and her wolf howled in terror. Get her out! Nikos roared to his guards. He was already shifting, his body rippling with power as his wolf emerged, massive, silver-furred, ancient, and unstoppable. He threw himself at the attackers, his jaws closing around the throat of the nearest assassin. Strong hands grabbed Phoenix. She fought instinctively until she recognized the guard captain. My lady, we need to move now. Marcus! She looked around wildly, but her ex-mate had already fled, disappearing through a side door like the coward he was. The guard captain pulled her toward the exit, 4 other guards surrounding them in a protective formation. Behind them, Nikos fought with the savage efficiency of a predator who'd had centuries to perfect killing. Blood sprayed across marble floors. An assassin went down, missing a head. Another's screams cut off abruptly, but there were so many of them. They made it to the corridor before more assassins appeared, cutting off their escape route. Phoenix pressed back against the wall, hands protectively covering her belly. The guards formed a barrier between her and the threat, their wolves emerging in ripples of fur and fury. The fight was brutal and swift. Phoenix watched in horror as one of her guards went down, silver blade through his chest. She felt useless, helpless, Weak, exactly like Marcus had always called her. No. Her wolf surged forward with unprecedented strength. We protect our young. Phoenix didn't know what she was doing, didn't understand the instinct that made her stretch out her hand toward the attacking assassin. Power poured out of her. Not shifting, not violence, but something else. Something that felt like pure light. The assassin screamed and fell back, smoke rising from where her power had touched him. The other attackers hesitated, and that moment of hesitation was all the remaining guards needed to press their advantage. The last assassin fell as Nikos appeared in the corridor, still in wolf form, his silver fur matted with blood that wasn't his own. He shifted back to human form in a ripple of power, naked and lethal and terrifying. His eyes found Phoenix, and the relief that crossed his face was so raw it made her chest ache. Phoenix. He was at her side in 2 strides, his hands running over her arms, her face, her belly, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? The babies? I'm fine. She was shaking, she realized, trembling like a leaf in a storm. The twins are fine. I felt them move. They're okay. Nikos pulled her against his chest, one hand cradling her head, the other spread protectively over her belly. Phoenix felt his heart racing, felt the mate bond singing between them stronger than ever. Around them, guards were checking bodies, securing the area, but all Phoenix could focus on was the solid warmth of Nikos holding her like she was the most precious thing in his world. I thought I'd lost you, he said into her hair, when they came through the windows, when I saw you standing there. You protected me. Phoenix pulled back enough to look at his face, at the blood splattered across his features and the fierce protectiveness in his silver eyes. You saved us. Always. His hand came up to cup her face. I will always protect you, Phoenix. You and these babies. Nothing will touch you while I breathe. The conviction in his voice, the way the mate bond flared gold and unbreakable between them, Phoenix felt something shift inside her chest. This wasn't Marcus's empty promises or casual cruelty. This was an alpha king who'd thrown himself into danger without hesitation, who'd killed to keep her safe, who looked at her like she was worth burning the world for. I feel it, she whispered. The bond, it's stronger. The threat, the fear, the need to protect you, it strengthened what was already there. Nikos's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. You're mine, Phoenix, not as a possession, not as a political move. You're my mate in truth, given to me by whatever ancient magic tied your children to my blood. Phoenix should be frightened by the intensity of his claim. Instead, she felt her wolf rising to meet his declaration with one of her own. I don't understand it, the magic, the bond, any of this. Neither do I. Nikos smiled slightly, even blood-stained and lethal. But I know what I feel when I look at you. And I know I would kill anyone who tried to take you from me. Guards were calling for the Alpha King's attention, reporting on casualties and security breaches. But Nikos didn't move, didn't take his focus from Phoenix for another long moment. Then he turned to his guard captain. Lockdown protocol. No one enters or leaves the palace. Find Marcus. He ran like the coward he is, and send word to every territory. The Alpha King's mate was attacked in his own throne room. Someone will answer for this. His mate. He'd said it again, claiming her before his guards, before witnesses. Phoenix felt the weight of it, the protection and the danger that came with being tied to the most powerful alpha alive. But as Nikos wrapped her in his arms and guided her back toward his chambers, as the mate bond hummed strong and sure in her chest, Phoenix realized she wasn't afraid. She was furious. Someone had tried to hurt her babies, had paid Marcus to betray her, had sent assassins to the royal palace, had nearly killed the guards who'd protected her. The wolf that had always been distant, always weak, stirred in her chest with rage that felt almost foreign. They'll come after me again, Phoenix said as they entered Nikos's chambers. He'd sent for clothes, for his physician, for increased security. Marcus said they want my bloodline. Let them try. Nikos's voice was deadly calm. Every attempt will end the same way, with their blood on my floor and you safe in my arms. Phoenix believed him, and more than that, she realized she was done being the helpless victim everyone assumed she was. The mysterious elder's words echoed in her mind. Your rising comes soon. Maybe it was time to find out exactly what her rare bloodline could do. The mate bond had become a living wound. Nikos stood in the ruins of the diplomatic hall where Phoenix had been taken, his hands still stained with the blood of the guards who'd failed to protect her. The scent of the drug they'd used on her lingered in the air, wolfsbane mixed with something darker, something that had masked her from his senses just long enough for them to vanish into the mountains. 3 days. She'd been gone for 3 days, and every hour stretched the bond between them thinner, more agonizing. He could feel her out there, terrified, hurting, fighting to stay strong for the twins. The knowledge that she was alive was the only thing keeping him from burning the world to ash. Alpha King. His guard captain approached cautiously, as one might approach a feral predator. We've received responses from the Blood Debts. Nikos turned, and the captain took an involuntary step back. The Alpha King's eyes had gone full silver, his wolf so close to the surface that his power made the air shimmer with heat. How many? All of them, my lord. Every pack you called is sending forces. The mountain fortress is warded, but with this many alphas... The captain hesitated. They'll have nowhere to run. Good. Nikos's voice was barely human, a growl that resonated with ancient authority. Assemble them at the northern border. We leave within the hour. He should wait for strategy, for planning, for the careful political maneuvering that had kept the territory stable for decades. But Phoenix was in that fortress, and the mate bond was screaming at him to move, to fight, to tear apart anyone who stood between them. His wolf had no patience for strategy. Neither did he. The journey north took 2 days of pushing both wolves and vehicles to their limits. Nikos ran at the front in wolf form, a massive silver beast that dwarfed every other wolf in the assembled force. Behind him came the alphas, who owed him blood debts, ancient obligations called in all at once. The werewolf world hadn't seen a mobilization like this in centuries. They felt it before they saw it, the dark magic radiating from the mountain fortress like a diseased wound on the landscape. Wards shimmered in the air, designed to repel tracking magic and cloud the senses. But Nikos had something the Shadow Collective hadn't counted on. The mate bond cut through every ward like a blade through silk. He sees. Could feel Phoenix now, closer with every mile. Could feel her fear and her fury. Could feel the twins' movements in her belly. The knowledge that they were still alive, still fighting, fed the rage that had been building in his chest since the moment she'd been taken. Alpha King. One of the allied alphas, a scarred veteran named Roran, shifted to human form beside him as they crested the final ridge. The wards are stronger than we anticipated. If we push through directly, we'll lose wolves. Nikos shifted as well, his naked form steaming in the cold mountain air. Below them, the fortress rose from the mountainside like a cancer, black stone and twisted architecture that spoke of old magic and older hatreds. He could see guards on the walls, could smell the Shadow Collective's forces assembled inside. I'm not asking anyone to come with me, Nikos said, his silver eyes fixed on the fortress. This is my mate, my fight. With respect, Alpha King. Roran gestured to the assembled force behind them, hundreds of wolves from dozens of packs. You called in blood debts. We're honor-bound to fight. And more than that. The older Alpha's expression softened slightly. Some of us remember what it's like to have a mate in danger. We stand with you. The other Alphas growled agreement, their wolves pressing forward in solidarity. Nikos felt something shift in his chest, gratitude, fierce and unexpected. He'd ruled alone for so long, had kept himself apart from the packs to maintain impartiality. But Phoenix had changed everything, had reminded him what it meant to be part of something larger than solitary power. Then we go in hard and fast, Nikos said. The wards will fight us, but I can feel her. The mate bond will guide me through. Focus on the outer defenses. I'll handle whatever's inside. And if they threaten her? Another alpha asked. Nikos smiled, and it was a terrible thing. Then they'd die screaming. The assault began at dawn. Nikos hit the wards first, his Alpha King power slamming into the magical barriers like a battering ram. The dark magic resisted, burning against his skin, but he pushed through on pure determination. Behind him, the allied alphas poured their combined strength into the breach he'd created, widening it until wolves could stream through. The Shadow Collective's forces met them at the outer walls. The battle was savage and immediate, tooth and claw against silver weapons, old pack tactics against desperate defensive stands. Nikos barely registered the fighting around him. His focus had narrowed to a single point, the mate bond pulling him forward, deeper into the fortress. A blade caught him across the ribs. He killed the wielder without breaking stride, his jaws crushing the wolf's throat before the body hit the ground. More guards tried to block the main entrance. Nikos's power exploded outward, the sheer force of his Alpha King dominance dropping them to their knees. He left them for his allies to handle, already moving toward the stairs that led down into the mountain's heart. The mate bond burned brighter with every step. He could feel Phoenix's presence like a beacon, could feel her fear spiking as the sounds of battle reached her cell. Hold on, he thought, not knowing if she could sense him through the bond. I'm coming. The fortress interior was a maze of corridors and defensive positions, but Nikos navigated it like he'd built the place himself. The mate bond didn't just pull him forward, it showed him the path, burning away the confusion magic that tried to lead him astray. His wolf was fully ascendant now, working in perfect harmony with his human mind. This was what it meant to be Alpha King, not just power, but purpose that transcended normal limitations. More guards tried to stop him in a narrow corridor. Nikos shifted mid-stride, his wolf form crashing through their defensive line like they were made of paper. Blood splattered stone walls. Someone got a blade into his shoulder and he barely felt it. The pain was nothing compared to the agony of being separated from his mate. He burst through a reinforced door, his momentum carrying him into a larger chamber. A dozen Shadow Collective fighters waited there, weapons drawn, magic crackling around them. At their center stood a wolf Nikos recognized. Cassius, the exiled Alpha who led this pathetic rebellion. Alpha King, Cassius said, his voice carrying false confidence. You're persistent, I'll give you that. But you're too late. Phoenix is ours now. And the power she'll give us? Nikos didn't let him finish. He moved faster than thought, his wolf form crossing the chamber in a blur of silver fur and lethal intent. His jaws closed around Cassius's arm, bone crunching between his teeth. The other fighters tried to intervene, but Nikos's power filled the room like a physical force, pressing them back against the walls. He shifted back to human form, one hand around Cassius's throat, lifting the other alpha off his feet. Where is she? Cassius laughed, blood trickling from his mouth. You think you've won? She's already breaking. The wards on her cell are feeding off her fear, growing stronger. Nikos threw him across the room hard enough to crack stone. He didn't have time for this. The mate bond was screaming at him, so close now. Phoenix was just beyond the next door, he could feel her. The remaining Shadow Collective fighters tried to stop him. Nikos cut through them with brutal efficiency, his centuries of combat experience making it almost effortless. These were outcasts and exiles, strong perhaps, but nothing compared to an Alpha King who'd spent lifetimes perfecting the art of violence. The final door was warded with blood magic, designed to kill anyone who touched it. Nikos pressed his hand against it anyway, letting his power pour into the barrier. It burned, gods it burned, but he pushed through the pain. For Phoenix, for his mate, for the twins who carried his bloodline and his future. The ward shattered with a sound like breaking glass. Phoenix heard the door explode inward and thought for a moment she was hallucinating. The past 3 days had been an endless cycle of fear and rage, of trying to keep herself calm for the twins while her captors threatened, and Marcus appeared periodically with his pathetic justifications. The cell they'd locked her in was designed to suppress wolf nature, warded to keep her weak and helpless. But something was changing. The wards that had pressed down on her were flickering, destabilizing. She could feel her wolf stirring in ways it never had before. Not the distant, weak presence Marcus had mocked, but something fierce and powerful that had been sleeping, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The sounds of battle had been echoing through the fortress for what felt like hours. Phoenix had pressed her hands to her belly, whispering reassurances to the twins, trying not to hope too hard that Nikos was out there somewhere fighting his way to her. Then the mate bond had flared so bright, it made her gasp. She'd felt him approaching, felt his rage and determination, and the unstoppable force of his will, pushing through every barrier between them. The wards on her cell had begun to crack, unable to hold against the sheer power of their connection. Now the door was gone, torn from its hinges by magic and fury. And there was Nikos. He looked like a god of war, naked and blood-stained, his silver eyes blazing with power, injuries covering his body that he clearly didn't even feel. His gaze found hers across the cell, and the relief that flooded his expression was so raw it made her chest ache. Phoenix. But before he could reach her, before she could throw herself into his arms, something inside her snapped. Not the mate bond, that burned stronger than ever. Something else. Something that had been building since Marcus's betrayal, since the kidnapping, since every moment she'd spent feeling helpless and afraid. Her wolf surged forward with a power that should have been impossible. The shift hit her like lightning. Phoenix had never fully shifted before. Marcus had told her she couldn't, that her wolf was too weak, that she was fundamentally broken. But as her body rippled and changed, as bones restructured and fur emerged, she realized with crystal clarity that he had been lying about everything. Her wolf wasn't weak. It had been dormant, waiting for her to be ready to handle its strength. The transformation completed in seconds. Phoenix stood in her cell on 4 legs, and through her wolf's eyes the world looked sharper, clearer. She could smell the fear on her captors, could feel power flowing through her veins like molten silver. Her fur, she caught a glimpse of it and nearly stumbled, was pure silver, the same shade as Nikos's eyes. The legendary color that appeared once in generations, marking a Luna of exceptional strength. The wards on the cell exploded outward. Phoenix's power, no longer suppressed, had nowhere to go but out. The magical barriers shattered like glass, sending feedback through whatever spell network the Shadow Collective had established. She heard shouts from elsewhere in the fortress, the sound of more wards failing. When she turned her silver wolf's gaze to Nikos, his expression was absolutely stunned. Then fierce pride replaced the shock, and the mate bond between them flared so bright she felt it in her bones. "Phoenix," he said again, his voice thick with emotion. "You're magnificent." She shifted back to human form, the transition easier than it should have been, and found herself naked but steady on her feet. Her hands went to her belly immediately. The twins were moving, restless but unharmed. "Thank the goddess." "I'm done being helpless," Phoenix said, and her voice was stronger than it had ever been. "They took me because they thought I was weak. They thought I needed to be saved." She met Nikos's silver gaze. "I need to face them. Marcus and Cassius. I need to show them exactly what they tried to destroy." Nikos moved to her, his hands cupping her face gently despite the violence still humming through his frame. "You don't have to prove anything. You're already—" "I know," Phoenix interrupted. "I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing it for me." She felt her wolf stirring, felt the power that had finally awakened thrumming through her veins. "And I'm doing it for our children, so they never doubt that their mother was strong." The smile that crossed Nikos's face was brilliant and fierce. "Then let's show them what a true Luna can do." He pulled off his torn shirt from where he'd dropped it earlier and helped her into it. It fell to her thighs, barely decent, but it would do. But Phoenix, you're not going alone. We do this together. She took his offered hand, their fingers intertwining. The mate bond sang between them, gold and silver light visible even to normal eyes. Together, she agreed. They found Marcus and Cassius in the ritual chamber at the fortress's heart. The room was carved from black stone, ancient symbols etched into every surface. At its center, a circle of dark magic pulsed with sickening energy. Marcus stood at the circle's edge, looking desperate and half-mad. Cassius was there too, clutching his injured arm, his expression twisted with fury. "You survived," Marcus said, staring at Phoenix like she was a ghost. "I told them the wards wouldn't hold you, but Cassius insisted." "Shut up," Cassius snarled. He turned to Nikos and Phoenix, his eyes calculating despite his obvious pain. "This doesn't have to end in more bloodshed, Alpha King. Phoenix's bloodline can benefit all of us. The twins she carries, their power could be shared, could make every pack stronger. By stealing my children?" Phoenix's voice was deadly calm. "By trying to strip them of their magic before they're even born? They were never supposed to be yours, Phoenix." Marcus took a step toward her, and Nikos growled low in his throat. "That bloodline belongs to Shadow Moon. Your grandmother—" "My grandmother was a Luna who chose exile over serving wolves like you," Phoenix interrupted. She'd heard the stories growing up, had never understood their significance until now. She knew what that bloodline meant, what people would do to control it. And she chose freedom. "And look where that freedom got you," Marcus sneered. "Rejected, cast out, alone." She was never alone. Nikos's power filled the chamber, making the dark magic circle flicker. "And she was never yours, Marcus. The mate bond you had was false, broken by your own betrayal. Phoenix is mine, the twins are mine, and you have no claim to any of us. Then I'll take what should have been mine." Marcus lunged for the ritual circle, his hands slamming down on the ancient symbols. Dark magic exploded upward, wrapping around him like living shadows. "This ritual will sever your bond and bind the children's power to me. They were conceived while Phoenix was my mate. I have the right." The magic reached out toward Phoenix, black tendrils seeking to wrap around her belly, around the twins. She felt Nikos move to intercept, felt his power rising to defend her. But Phoenix's wolf surged forward with a snarl that was purely her own. Her power met the dark magic head-on. Silver light exploded from her hands, pure and bright, meeting the shadows like dawn burning away night. The ritual circle cracked, the ancient symbols beginning to break apart under the assault of her Luna strength. "No," Marcus gasped, pushing more energy into the ritual. "No, you're weak. You can't—" "I was never weak." Phoenix advanced on the circle, her silver light growing brighter with each step. "You told me I was because you needed to believe it. Because if I knew my real strength, I'd have seen you for what you really were. A small, pathetic alpha who was so threatened by his mate's potential that he broke their bond rather than stand beside her." The mate bond with Nikos flared in response to her words, his power flowing into hers. Not overwhelming her, not taking over, supporting, amplifying. Their strengths combining into something that transcended either of them alone. This was what a true mate bond could be, Phoenix realized. Not possession, but partnership. Their combined power slammed into the ritual circle. The dark magic shattered like glass, the feedback explosion throwing Marcus across the chamber. He hit the wall hard enough to leave a crater, his body crumpling. When he tried to stand, something was fundamentally different. Phoenix could see it, could sense it through her newly awakened wolf senses. His alpha power was gone, stripped away by the ritual's backfire, leaving him just another wolf. "No," Marcus whispered, staring at his hands like they belonged to a stranger. "No, my power. I can't feel—" "That's what happens when you try to steal what was never yours," Nikos said coldly. He turned to Cassius, who'd been trying to edge toward the exit. "And you, the architect of all this." Cassius straightened, trying to salvage some dignity. The Shadow Collective is larger than just me. Kill me, and others will. There is no Shadow Collective anymore, Nikos interrupted. My allies have been dismantling your organization while I found my mate. Your followers are dead or captured. Your resources are seized. You're finished. Phoenix watched Cassius's face as the reality of his defeat sank in. She felt nothing but cold satisfaction. These wolves had tried to take everything from her children, her future, her very autonomy. They'd failed, and now they would face the consequences. The twins, she said, turning to Nikos. The prophecy the elder mentioned. About two fathers, one of blood, one of destiny. Nikos's hand found hers again. The magic that ties them to me isn't just ancient bloodline resonance. It's fate. The moment you conceived, the universe recognized me as their true father, regardless of biology. His silver eyes held hers. They were always meant to be ours, Phoenix. Both of us. She understood now. The impossible mate bond, the way Nikos had known about the twins before she'd told him, the strength of their connection that had cut through every ward and barrier. It had all been destiny arranging itself. Marcus had never been her true mate. He'd been an obstacle to overcome, a trial that had ultimately led her to where she was meant to be. The werewolf world needs to see this, Phoenix said. She looked at Marcus, broken and powerless, and Cassius, trapped and defeated. They need to understand what happens when someone tries to harm the Alpha King's mate and heirs. Nikos smiled, fierce and proud. Then let's show them. 3 months later, Phoenix lay in their chambers with Nikos's hand clasped in hers, breathing through another contraction. The twins had decided they were done waiting, arriving 2 weeks early and making their presence known with characteristic assertiveness. You're doing perfectly, Nikos murmured, pressing a kiss to her sweat-dampened forehead. Just a little longer, love. The royal physician worked efficiently at the foot of the bed, her experienced hands guiding the process. Phoenix's wolf surged forward, lending her strength, and she bore down with everything she had. The first twin arrived with a lusty wail that filled the chamber. A son, the physician announced, carefully cleaning the baby before laying him on Phoenix's chest. Healthy and strong. Phoenix looked down at her firstborn and felt her heart expand impossibly. He was perfect, tiny and red-faced, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that would probably turn silver like his father's. On his left shoulder, she could see the mark already forming, the ancient symbol of an Alpha King. "Hello, little one," she whispered, running her finger along his cheek. "We've been waiting for you." Before she could say more, another contraction hit. Nikos carefully took their firstborn, cradling him with practiced ease while Phoenix focused on bringing their second son into the world. The second twin emerged minutes later, equally loud and perfect. Another son, another Alpha King, marking forming on his small shoulder. The physician laid him beside his brother in Nikos's arms, and Phoenix watched her mate, the fearsome Alpha King who'd torn through armies to reach her, look at their sons with such tender awe that tears pricked her eyes. "They're perfect," Nikos said, his voice rough with emotion. "You're perfect. Phoenix, my love, my Luna, you've given me everything." Hours later, when the physician had left and the twins were clean and sleeping in their bassinets, Phoenix lay in Nikos's arms and watched their sons breathe. The mate bond hummed contentedly between her and Nikos, and she could swear she felt smaller, newer bonds connecting her to both babies. "The ceremony is in 3 days," Nikos said softly, his hand running through her hair. "Every pack leader across all territories will be there. Are you ready?" Phoenix thought about the she-wolf she'd been when this all started. Broken, rejected, convinced she was worthless. Then she thought about who she'd become. A silver wolf of legend, a Luna with power that matched an Alpha King's, a mother to future rulers. "I'm ready," she said. "Let's show them what a true Luna Queen looks like." The ceremony was held on the palace grounds before thousands of witnesses. Phoenix wore a gown of silver and midnight blue, her hair braided with moonstone beads that caught the light. Beside her, Nikos stood in full formal regalia, every inch the powerful Alpha King. Between them, in specially crafted carriers, the twins slept peacefully, unaware of the history being made. The assembled pack leaders watched as Nikos stepped forward, his voice carrying across the crowd with Alpha King authority. 3 months ago, the Shadow Collective threatened my mate and attempted to steal my heirs. They believed power could be taken through violence and dark magic. They were wrong. He turned to Phoenix, offering his hand. She took it, stepping forward to stand beside him as an equal. The mate bond between them was visible even to those without magical sight, gold and silver light wrapping around them both. Phoenix is my true mate, given to me by fate and magic that predates our understanding, Nikos continued. These sons are mine by every law that matters: blood, destiny, and choice. Today, before all of you, I claim Phoenix as my Luna Queen, an equal partner in ruling the werewolf territories. Phoenix felt the weight of thousands of gazes on her. Just months ago, the attention would have made her want to hide. Now she stood tall, her silver wolf steady and strong within her. And I claim Nikos as my mate and Alpha King, she said, her voice clear and unwavering. I pledge to stand beside him, to rule with justice and strength, and to protect our people as fiercely as I protect our sons. The formal words of the mating ceremony flowed between them, ancient vows that bound them not just personally, but politically. When it came time for the marking, Nikos bent to kiss the junction of her neck and shoulder, his canines extending just enough to leave his permanent claim. Phoenix did the same, marking him in return, a Luna's claim on her alpha, visible for all to see. The crowd erupted in howls of approval. Pack leaders who'd questioned Phoenix's place beside the Alpha King now bent their necks in submission, recognizing her authority. She saw familiar faces in the crowd, the Alphas who'd fought beside Nikos to rescue her, allies who'd proven their loyalty. And there, at the very back, she saw the mysterious elder who'd appeared the night she'd fled Marcus. The old woman smiled, her eyes knowing, and Phoenix understood with sudden clarity who she'd been all along. The moon goddess herself had set this in motion, had guided Phoenix to Nikos, had woven the magic that made the twins his, had orchestrated every step of their journey. The elder inclined her head in acknowledgement, then simply faded from view, her blessing given and accepted. After the ceremony, as night fell and celebrations continued around them, Nikos pulled Phoenix into their private chambers. The twins were with trusted nursemaids for a few hours, giving them rare time alone. Luna Queen, Nikos murmured against her lips, backing her toward their bed. My mate. My everything. Alpha King, Phoenix responded, her hands sliding under his formal jacket. My partner. My love. They came together with the desperate passion of mates who'd fought through hell to be together, the mate bond singing between them stronger than ever. Afterward, lying tangled in silk sheets with her head on his chest, Phoenix felt a peace she'd never imagined possible. I was so broken when you found me, she said softly. I thought I'd never be whole again. You were never broken, Nikos replied, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. You were becoming. Everything you went through made you into the Luna Queen the werewolf world needed. Phoenix thought about Marcus, stripped of his power and exiled to the farthest territory. About Cassius and the Shadow Collective, dismantled and scattered. About all the wolves who'd underestimated her, who'd seen her as weak prey instead of the predator she'd always had the potential to become. They tried to destroy me, she said. They made me stronger instead. That's what phoenixes do, Nikos said with a smile. They rise from the ashes more powerful than before. A soft cry from the nursery drew their attention. Phoenix rose, pulling on a silk robe, and went to collect their sons. She brought them back to the bed, settling between the pillows with a twin in each arm. Nikos curled around them protectively, his family safe in his embrace. Looking at her mate and their sons, Phoenix felt her heart overflow with gratitude. She'd been abandoned by a wolf who couldn't see her worth, had been hunted by those who wanted to steal her power, had been broken down and built back stronger. And through it all, she'd found her way to exactly where she was meant to be. "I love you," she whispered to Nikos, watching one tiny hand wrap around his finger. "All of you, my whole world. And we love you, my Luna Queen." Nikos pressed a kiss to her temple. "Our whole world, now and forever." Outside their windows, the full moon rose over the palace, bathing everything in silver light. Phoenix closed her eyes and felt the presence of the moon goddess one more time, a gentle touch of approval, a blessing on their family, a promise that their story was just beginning. She'd been pregnant with twins when her mate left. The Alpha King had claimed them as his own, and in doing so, he'd claimed her heart, her future, and her eternal devotion. Phoenix had risen, and she would never fall again.